so when you hear one can some say my foot to some cacre was supreme. No coffee, oh my, a woman, oh money, a man, Granny baby, I call what I warren. One song, one in pa, as I did power of the way. Gamoy and Beraye. Shira, Mamani Payos, the Foa, and Yanum. That's why I'm destroying Jumana, Yami Bestroyan, or Brian Boya, and I am Uriah, Abbey, free and Ara, Amadaya, free and Ara, I sit there.
Kaya Israel, kaba Egypt, kaya Ethiopia, kaya Sudan, waja shong. Kaya Ikushima, wani me kona me waja shong. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, waja shong. Waja gay, waja shong. Manchester, no Sumanguru, walk where they get, what you're shown. Cause that you do, Wamasa, yes, that's why what you're shown. Get your Israel, get my Egypt, get your Ethiopia, get Sudan, what you're shown. I walk about you know what you're for, I get on here, I'm in young thing. I walk about you know what you're for, I get you one year, I'm a young thing. I'm a Gamian Matu, I'm a Gamian Motu, I'm a Gamian Matu. I'm a Gamian Matu, I'm a Gamian Motu, I'm a Gamian Matu. I'm a Gamian Matu, we not a catch more walk out. Them say no fit jump, them say you no fit jump, them say we no fit jump. Them say no fit jump, them say you no fit jump, them say we no go fit jump. I'm a young what to my boy na cha cha catch my walk man. Kaya jenje sana mama. Na gwa you know. Kaya jenje sana mama. Padi kete ku you know. Kaya jenje sana mama. Umre kwedu. Kaya jenje sana mama. Umre kwedu. Kaya jenje sana mama. Shini ndura pa. Kaya jenje sana mama. Kaya jenje sana mama. Kinyabu you know. Kaya jenje sana mama. What you do want to me when I jenje sana mama. Kaya jenje sana mama. Korean to me. Momentum pon on your grabber. No may ye see my chara. You see my zero. Mewo. Feet tanya found with you. Yes, me had to me and do baby. Mewo, Gary, you're not one of them. Mogopado. Yamba Pessamin coming young town. It's not coming in. I am Fanka. Yampa gentum, Yanju no V and Tim Hapra. No may ye see my chara. You see my zero. Ubiaram Brana, oh my emfa. Ubiaram Brana, oh my emfa. Nane Yami, why and Yamfa. Momentum pon on your grabber. No may see much. You see much. Mewo. Feet tanya found with you. Yes, me had to me and do baby. Mewo, Gary, you're not one of them. Mogopado. Yamba Pessamin coming young town. It's not coming in. I am Fanka. Yamba gentle, Yamba Petro, Kakrangum no show cry. Now may ye see my you see my Obiaram Brana, oh my emfa. Obiaram Brana, oh my emfa. Nane Yami, boy, and Yamfa. Yeah, no, they you. Yeah, no, they are my oh, when you're there, you're there. Oh, yeah, no, they you.
President will be arriving any moment from now. So everybody take your seats. Those standing outside, can you come in and occupy the seats available? The centering. You may sit down. Your Excellency, on behalf of the SRAJ, its partners, I would like to welcome you to this program, 2021 High-Level National Conference to commemorate International Anti-Corruption Day and the International Human Rights Day under the theme, Building a Culture of Integrity for Generations. Your Excellency, with your permission, I would like to start the program. May we invite Mrs. Mary Ada to say the opening prayer.
Thank you very much. Please, shall we be upstanding as we acknowledge God? Shall we be in a mood of prayer? Father, this morning we want to thank you for an opportunity like this to be before your presence. Even as we commemorate International Anti-Corruption Day and today Human Rights Day, we pray that you will be our guide and you will lead us. In our deliberations, we pray, Father God, that you would steer affairs and make this country a country in which integrity and a culture that elevates every citizen above all in all our ways and in all our deeds to live lives that exemplify the values of our forefathers. We pray, Father God, that in every speech you will direct affairs. In everything we do here, we pray that we will be living with commitments that would spur the way forward for this country in our fight against corruption and in moralizing our society for the betterment of nation Ghana. Lord, we pray that bless our homeland Ghana and make this nation great and strong, bold to defend in every way, that we will say, yes, Lord, at the end of the day, you have been our God in ages past, and you continue to be our hope for years to come. This and many others we have asked. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Your Excellency, before I invite the Commissioner to give his welcome remarks, Your Excellency, also in our midst is the Ambassador of Germany and the Ambassador of the United States of America. Also present are other members of the diplomatic corps, members of parliament, heads of institutions, the National Monitoring Committee on the NACAP, the High-Level Implementation Committee, members of security agencies and the police band, and of course school children are also present. With this, Excellency, may I then invite the Commissioner Sraj, Mr. Joseph Whittle, to give his welcome remarks and introduction of the chair for this occasion.
The chairman, who I'm yet to introduce formally, special guest of honor, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, members of the Council of State present, His Lordship Justice Yoni Kulendi, honorable ministers of state, honorable members of parliament, Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, Your Excellency, the UN resident representative, chief directors and chief executive officers of MDAs, heads of institutions, distinguished colleagues, distinguished invited guests. I am privileged this morning to welcome His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, and distinguished guests to this high-level national conference, which is under the theme, Building a Culture of Integrity for Generations. The conference has been organized by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice and its partners under the auspices of the Office of the President, to celebrate two important international events. That is the International Anti-Corruption Day and the International Human Rights Day, all on 10th December instead of celebrating these days or events on the 9th and the 10th December separately. Today, the International Anti-Corruption and Human Rights committees are marking these days under the themes, Your Right, Your Role, Say No to Corruption. That is for the Anti-Corruption Day. And Equality, Reducing Inequality, Advancing Human Rights, for the Human Rights Day. As you are no doubt aware, we celebrate the International Anti-Corruption Day as part of our obligations under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, further to UN General Assembly Resolution 584 of 31st October 2000, that, quote, in order to raise awareness of corruption and of the role of the Convention in combating and preventing it, 9th December should be designated International Anti-Corruption Day. The International Human Rights Day is observed on 10th December every year. To mark the day, the United Nations General Assembly adopted in 1948 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as, quote, a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. This day is used as an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of human rights in particular and in rebuilding the world we want with global solidarity in general. Shortly, Deputy Commissioner Kwesin will be presenting a statement on the state of corruption, but allow me to draw attention to a few areas of concern in terms of how we are waging the war against corruption through the implementation of the plan we adopted as a reference point, which is the NACAP. Your Excellency, we are aware that several measures are being taken by government to facilitate the implementation of NACAP and addressing corruption, including resourcing anti-corruption and law enforcement institutions, as well as the introduction of new legislation. Your Excellency, however, there are three most important legislation which are outstanding. And these are the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which is the COPO Bill, 2021, the amendment to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice Act, 1993, Act 456, to operationalize charge as the National Preventive Mechanism of Ghana, and the Whistleblower Amendment Bill. Your Excellency, we are calling on Your Excellency to ensure that action is fast-tracked on the passage of these legislation to enhance fundamental human rights and the fight against corruption. Furthermore, the National Cultural Review Program, very critical component of the national effort at tackling the very foundation of corruption, is yet to be instituted, though it is an activity under the NACAP that should have been undertaken within the first 5 years of implementation of the NACAP. I am also aware that another important program under the NACAP, which is still outstanding, is the introduction of a National Award of Integrity. It is becoming increasingly clear that incentivizing men and women of integrity and public and private institutions through an award and recognition system at the national level will greatly complement the sanction regime currently in place. This needs to be operationalized as urgently as possible. Your Excellency, there is an increasing recognition of the relationship between corruption and human rights, in the sense that corruption is a gross violation of individual rights and freedoms. It also poses a threat to democracy. Therefore, when we fail to curb corruption, we also fail to fulfill the obligation to promote, protect, and preserve the fundamental human rights of the people, especially those in vulnerable situations. Your Excellency, several activities have been undertaken since Monday, when I launched the Anti-Corruption and Transparency Week, the ACT Week. On Tuesday, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition celebrated its 20th anniversary. On the same day, the Ghana Statistical Service launched the Ghana Integrity of Public Services Survey. And on Thursday, the Ghana Integrity Initiative organized an Integrity Awards ceremony. Other activities took place in the regions. I have no doubt in my mind that the Act Week has been very useful and that we have achieved the objectives for which we launched it. The attendance and the participation at the various activities, as well as the feedback provided by the various media outlets, attest to this. I'd like to express my appreciation to the Planning Committee and our partners for ensuring the success of the week. Your Excellency, very soon, Deputy Commissioner Kwesin would present a statement on the state of corruption in Ghana, including the extent to which we have implemented the NACAP. I dare say the implementation of NACAP by some MDAs leave much to be desired. There are still some agencies that have failed and or refused to implement and report on NACAP to the charge, despite several reminders and continuous directives by way of circulars from the Ministry of Finance since from 2017 through to 2021. That's to agencies to budget for the implementation of NACAP. I'm of the humble view that there's a need to begin to crack the whip on defaulting state institutions on their implementation and reporting obligations on the NACAP to increase responsiveness to the fight against corruption. Your Excellency, I have been requested to introduce the chairman for the conference. Kindly permit me now to introduce the chairman for this occasion, who is a well-known and respected personality of this country. I'm referring to His Lordship, Justice Yoni Kulendi, Justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana. His Lordship, Justice Yoni Kulendi is a 1992 graduate of the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, with an LLB Hons. He completed the Ghana School of Law in September 1994 and was called to the bar the same year. He did his pupillage at Akufo-Addo Prempeh & Co., a law firm in Accra, from September 94 to March 95. His Lordship, Justice Kulendi, continued to practice law as a barrister and solicitor at that firm from July 95 to July 2002, when he founded the law firm Kulendi at Law. He was appointed to the High Office of Justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana in May 2020. Prior to his appointment, he was a director of the Justice and Human Rights Institute, a non-governmental and not-for-profit organization that enhances the quality of justice and broadens respect for fundamental human rights, good governance, democratic values, and social responsibilities in Africa. For those of us at charge, His Lordship Justice Kulendi is a brother, because when in private practice, His Lordship assisted the Commission in so many ways, including enforcement of some of the decisions of the Commission in court for free. It is therefore not by accident that His Lordship, the Chief Justice, has chosen His Lordship Justice Kulendi to chair this conference. Your Excellency, permit me to welcome His Lordship Justice Yoni Kulendi, the chairman for this function, and to thank him for accepting the chairmanship. Mr. Chairman, your audience, your chairman. Thank you so much.
Your Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, my brother Commissioner Int'l, Commissioner for the Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Deputy Commissioners of Shiraj, representative of the United Nations Secretary General, members of the Council of State, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ministers of state, honorable members of parliament, members of the High-Level Implementation Committee of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, heads and members of key accountability institutions, heads of institutions, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by thanking the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice and its partners for organizing this conference. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to participate in this year's conference, which is the 6th to be organized since the adoption of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan by the Parliament of Ghana in 2014. This year's conference is a culmination of a weeks-long activities designed to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day and the International Human Rights Day, both significant events warranting the attention being paid to this conference. Your Excellency, we have continued to witness concerns around corruption. Corruption has been aptly described by the illustrious son of Ghana and former UN Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan of blessed memory, as, quote, an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violations of human rights, distorts markets, erodes the quality of life, allows organized crime, terrorism, and other threats to human security to flourish. It feeds inequality and injustice, unquote. These words of Mr. Annan were uttered in 2003, the year the UN General Assembly resolved to designate the 9th of December as International Anti-Corruption Day in order to raise awareness about the fight against corruption and the importance of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. This conference, Your Excellency, and its team, building a culture of integrity for generations, could therefore not have come at a better time. It is a wake-up call for all of us, and I find it visionary and inspiring. Your Excellency, I do know that the theme for this year's International Anti-Corruption Day is, quote, your right, your role. Say no to corruption, unquote. And that for the International Human Rights Day is, quote, equality, reducing inequality, advancing human rights, unquote. These two themes selected by the international community, in my view, invite us to consider our role in addressing corruption as a right and how that can reduce inequality and advance human rights. I find the three themes to feed into one another, and we could not have chosen a better conference theme. Your Excellency, the citizens undoubtedly are right to expect that with the adoption of NACAP, corruption would have been brought under significant control. In a few minutes, we will hear what we have done well and what we have not. For now, permit me to state that the Judicial Service is a key partner in the fight against corruption. By Article 1255 of the Constitution, the judiciary is given the jurisdiction in all matters, civil and criminal, including matters relating to the Constitution and such other jurisdictions as Parliament may by law confer on it. Thus, the judiciary is clothed with a jurisdiction to adjudicate corruption and other criminal cases prosecuted before the courts and to punish those found guilty and recover assets found to be tainted and or proceeds of crime. We shall continue to discharge this role without fear or favor, affection or ill will. We are also taking seriously our role in the implementation of NACAP. Indeed, The Judicial Service was the first institution to, on the adoption of NACAP, draw out its own plan, quote, the Anti-Corruption Plan for the Judiciary and the Judicial Service 2017 to 19. The Judiciary of Ghana uprooting corruption wherever it is found, unquote. These responsibilities of the judiciary and the NACAP form the basis of this plan. We are also, Your Excellency, mindful of our role as underscored in Article 11.1 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which states as follows, and I quote, bearing in mind the independence of the judiciary and its crucial role in combating corruption, each state party, in accordance with the fundamental principles of its legal system and without prejudice to independence, take measures to strengthen integrity and to prevent opportunities for corruption among members of the judiciary. Such measures may include rules with respect to the conduct of members of the judiciary, unquote. Among other measures, we are actively enforcing the Code of Conduct for judges and magistrates, as well as the Code of Ethics for judicial service staff. But there is no doubt that we need to do more. Therefore, with a new vision of building a culture of integrity for generations, I believe the judiciary must play a more catalytic role in building integrity in our society. Your Excellency, the success of this conference and the fight against corruption in our country depends on all of us. We must come out of this conference committed to making the sacrifices that can change the current discourse, attitudes, and orientation to nation building, and working together to make Ghana greater and stronger. Our active involvement and contribution to the implementation of NACAP and the projects to be launched today will be vital to laying a more enabling foundation for mitigating and bringing corruption under control in Ghana. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege to deputize for the Honorable Chief Justice, His Lordship Justice Enin Yabua, as chair of this conference. I therefore feel privileged. I cannot resume my seat without congratulating the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for a well-deserved and earned Forbes African of the Year 2021. Mr. President, congratulations. You have done us proud. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all. God bless our homeland, Ghana, and I wish you very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
We are very grateful, Chair. I would now invite the Deputy Commissioner, Siraj, Mr. Richard Kwesi, to give us the highlights of the state of corruption in the country.
Your Excellency, my Lord Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will want to stand on the existing protocol and because of time, proceed to present the highlights of the state of corruption and human rights in Ghana. Your Excellency, the statement we are about to present represent highlights of progress made in advancing fundamental human rights and freedoms and addressing corruption in Ghana. The statement is made up of extracts from research conducted by the Commission on the Impact of COVID-19 on the Enjoyment of Rights and reports submitted by the stakeholders who implemented the NACAP. I will start first with human rights. This year, in keeping with the Commission's mandate to assess the general observance of human rights, the Commission conducted research on the general impact of COVID-19 pandemic on economic, social, and cultural rights of the citizenry, particularly those in vulnerable situations. The research was conducted on the basis that Ghana, as a state party to the Convention on the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, was required to take a range of intentional, concrete, and targeted measures to respond to COVID-19 pandemic, to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on those who were likely to be most affected, particularly the vulnerable. The exercise examined the impact of the pandemic on various formal and informal institutions, persons, particularly vulnerable in terms of being self-employed workers, those in non-traditional forms and informal economy, as well as those living in deprived communities and informal settlements. Your Excellency, a total of 4,500 respondents were interacted with from 165 districts across the 16 regions of Ghana. Respondents were selected and interviewed using a mixed method approach. The findings of the research established that COVID-19 impacted the whole spectrum of human rights. But I'll pick just a few. On the right to health, the exercise showed that from March to December 2020, apart from hospitals and centers designated for the treatment of COVID-19, intake of patients reduced in about 96% of health institutions across the country, as resources were redirected to contain the pandemic. However, intake started improving in 2021. Right to education. The pandemic had severe impact on the enjoyment of the right to education. By late March 2020, almost all educational facilities in Ghana had closed down. Subsequently, many schools shifted to distance or online learning or radio and television to ensure continuity of education. However, a great number of schools, especially those in deprived communities, lack the necessary infrastructure for distance or online learning. Many low-income homes could also not afford the costs associated with online learning. Right to adequate standard of living. This considered how the pandemic affected persons and groups in vulnerable situations such as self-employed and workers in non-traditional and informal economy. These include open market traders, barbers and hairdressers, street vendors or hawkers, drivers and station masters in private road sector, and basic conditions of livelihood of those living in deprived communities and informal settlements. Majority of workers in informal sector and in non-traditional business recorded substantial reduction or loss in income. The ban on social gatherings impacted them more disproportionately than others. Many workers in the informal sectors were laid off, while others had their earnings reduced substantially. According to the Ghana Hotels Association, some hotels, particularly in Accra and Kumasi, closed down temporarily during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. About 92% of hotels experienced booking cancellations and a marked drop in the number of customers. 71 hotels and 5 guest houses collapsed because of the impact of the pandemic. The pandemic also extended the existing inequalities and disproportionately affected women and persons in low-income jobs. For example, more women than men work in service occupations including domestic work, restaurant services, open market, and hospitality industries that require face-to-face interaction with customers, and these were hard hit by the layoffs. Places of detention. Prisoners and detainees were of particular interest given the rate at which such infectious diseases could spread in such close settings. In the wake of the pandemic, in accordance with Article 72(1) of the Constitution, the President granted amnesty to 794 prisoners, resulting in a reduction of the prison population. Court attendances, as well as visits to prisons, were suspended. Recreational, educational activities, vocational workshops were curtailed, and some facilities resorted to only indoor games. Some inmates were granted bail, and some transferred to other facilities to ease congestion. The Ghana Police Service and the Ghana Health Service worked together to ensure that detained persons were tested before they were admitted to prison facilities. The records show that no inmate contracted COVID-19. Mitigating measures by the state. Most of the respondents said that the government's social interventions helped them to recover from the negative impact of the pandemic. The government's social interventions include provisions of PPEs, free water and power, hot meals, food items, stimulus package, and others. Your Excellency, the COVID-19 pandemic and the measures put in place to curtail the spread of the pandemic affected different rights enshrined in the Constitution, International Human Rights Instrument. Those particularly affected include the right to health, education, work, adequate shelter and food, freedom of movement, religion, and assembly. On the other hand, there is empirical evidence to show that our collective response to the pandemic produced many positives. Before the pandemic, majority of schools in Ghana only employed face-to-face method of instruction. With the emergence of the pandemic, innovatively, online modes of teaching and learning were introduced by some schools. Relatedly, the introduction of virtual trainings and meetings for public and private institutions and the growing acquaintance with video conferencing software is gradually becoming a norm. The pandemic has also exposed gaps that existed particularly in Ghana's social infrastructure, especially in relation to health and education, that must be addressed. Long-term socioeconomic interventions such as the construction of 111 medical facilities, Agenda 111, Center for Disease Control, and many more are welcome since they will help reduce the inequalities identified. The attitudinal awareness by corporate organizations and individuals to maintain hygienic and healthy sanitary conditions, as well as the promotion of simple, modest social gatherings such as weddings, funerals, etc., are also worth sustaining. The efforts by the criminal justice system to reduce custodial sentences for minor offenses and the claim that no inmate in adult prisons contracted the virus is commendable. On this International Human Rights Day, as we reflect on the theme equality, reducing inequality, advancing human rights, may we concretely and intentionally seek to bridge the gaps unearthed by the pandemic in the promotion of fundamental rights for all. May we seek to reduce inequality and advance economic, social, and cultural rights of all persons, particularly those in vulnerable situations, so as to ensure that no one is left behind. I will now turn my attention to the measures to address corruption. Your Excellency, Article 35(8) of the 1992 Constitution on the directive principles of state policy directs that the state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and the abuse of power. To address the canker of corruption, Parliament of Ghana adopted the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan in July 2014. The NACAP envisions a democratic and society which is founded on good governance and imbued with high ethics and integrity. NACAP that sets out to address some of the fundamental causes of corruption. Among them, high tolerance for corruption in our nation, dishonesty, impunity, indiscipline, and lawlessness. Progress made in implementation of NACAP. Your Excellency, our efforts over the past 7 years have focused mainly on putting in place systems that can seal the loopholes and the weaknesses in the governance landscape and provide a strong foundation for fighting corruption. Among others, about 135 broad activities on NACAP. Of the 135 broad activities under the NACAP, 127 of them have either been completed or are at various levels of implementation. About 227 stakeholders in the public, private, and civil society have, in one way or other, participated in the implementation of NACAP since 2015. Awareness of the evils of corruption and mechanism for reporting corrupt practices has increased. Major interventions are being undertaken to prevent bribery and associated practices, including prohibition of inappropriate gifts. We are automating essential services to reduce opportunities for corruption. We are increasing the number of institutions that have adopted sexual harassment policy to address sexual harassment and sex extortion at the workplace are increasing. We are extending the Public Service Integrity Program to all public offices to enforce the Code of Conduct for public officers, asset declaration regime, conflict of interest, and regulation of gifts in the public sector. We have, over the past 4 years, enacted the following legislation: Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, Witness Protection Act, Right to Information Act, Companies Act, Criminal Offences Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act, and Narcotics Control Commission Act. So, by all indications, we have made some decent progress. We have also improved coordination among key accountability institutions. 10 key accountability institutions recently executed an MOU under which a forum has been established among them to regularly exchange information, undertake joint investigations, and other actions. This will undoubtedly help to minimize work overlaps and maximize use of resources in addressing corruption and crime. Where we have not done well, Your Excellency, we have not invested sufficiently in the fight against corruption, and we need to do more. We have delayed in the implementation of some key programs under the NACAP, and Commissioner Int'l alluded to those ones, so I will jump them. We have also delayed in enacting key anti-corruption bills. And lastly, we have not been strong on the enforcement of our laws. Your Excellency, in June this year, we commenced corruption risk assessment of the Ghana Health Services and the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. The assessment is to identify and prioritize current and potential corruption weaknesses within the institutions and to develop and implement corresponding corruption risk mitigation strategies. Next year, we intend to conduct about 10 more of such exercises. Ghana is yet to obtain a pass mark, that is 50 over 100 since 1999 in the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. In 2020, Ghana obtained 43% score, placing 75th position out of 180 countries. In respect of the Global Corruption Index, Ghana's rank dropped from 90th position in 2019 to 96th in 2020. Last Tuesday, December 7, CHRAJ and the Ghana Statistical Services jointly launched the 2021 Ghana Corruption Survey, otherwise referred to as Ghana Integrity of Public Services Survey. The Actual Corruption Survey is being organized with technical support of the UNODC, and it will help us establish the reality behind the perception. Further, the survey will enable us to compare with the findings of the Ghana Living Standards Survey 7 in relation to bribery and corruption. Your Excellency, just a few highlights of the findings of the Ghana Living Standards Survey. 44.7% of respondents said that they have never had to pay additional money to government officials before getting things done. 18.6% of respondents said they occasionally have to pay additional money to have things done by government officials. Those who said they have always had to pay additional money to government officials before service are provided constituted only 6.9%, with 6.5% in urban areas and 7.5% in rural areas. Even here we see some differentials. More than half of the respondents from 5 regions, that is Northern, Volta, Upper West, Greater Accra, and Upper West, said they have never had to pay additional monies to government officials before they get services rendered. This, for me, shows that we are making some progress, even though we need to do more. There is no question that corruption is hurting the nation, and if not brought under control, it will be impossible for present and future government to make any meaningful progress in national development. Your Excellency, we still have 3 years to go with the implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. The program to be launched today, the National Cultural Review Program, and the Schools Integrity Project have the potential to contribute significantly to reducing corruption in our society. Your Excellency, before I conclude my presentation, permit me to pay tribute to our founding fathers and mothers who laid down their lives to immeasurably improve ours. They took pride in making sacrifices to give us a hope and a future. It is the turn of our generation to build on the rich heritage our fathers left us and leave a much better heritage to the generations after us. At independence, the first Prime Minister had cause to caution us about our mindset and attitude. Unfortunately, either we were carried away by the sheer magnitude of our new status, or we could not appreciate the significance of being an independent state and the responsibilities that go with it. We failed to change our attitude and mindset, and today we are paying dearly for it, as can be seen in the prevalence of indiscipline and corruption in our society. And contrary to what some would have us believe, this, Your Excellency, is a case of the chicken coming home to roost after many, many years of neglecting the foundational issues of Sajefu so aptly warned us of. I will say that Sankofa Winchil, the 2 key programs we are about to launch today, would hopefully help us address the attitude of the Ghanaian. The theme for this year's International Human Rights Day is equality, reducing inequality, advancing human rights. Whilst that of the International Anti-Corruption Day is your right, your role, say no to corruption. You will agree with me that these 2 international themes reinforce each other, as efforts at reducing corruption will reduce inequality and advance the enjoyment of fundamental human rights and freedoms. The 2 themes also fit perfectly into the conference theme of building a culture of integrity for generations. Your Excellency, it is a humble submission that the greatest legacy you can leave this nation is to help this nation develop the right mindset and attitude needed for nation building and national development. Who knows, Your Excellency, whether you have come to office for such a time as this. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kwesi. The next on the program is the presentation of the UN Secretary General's messages for the 2 days. This will be presented by His Excellency Charles Abani, Resident Coordinator of the United Nations in Ghana. May I invite Your Excellency to be here.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, members of the Council of State, the Chairman of this occasion, the Commissioner of Shraj, Attorney General, Minister of Justice, members of Parliament here present, Excellencies from the diplomatic community here present, Government of Ghana, civil society, media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I'm conscious of time, so I will keep my comments short. It is my pleasure to be here to represent the Secretary General on the commemoration of these two important days. As Ghana strides towards self-reliance and middle-income status, sustaining progress will hinge on good governance, transparency, and accountability. Fighting corruption and upholding human rights will be key elements of this glue that will hold Ghana together and enable it to move forward. Achieving the SDGs itself will not be possible unless both of these agendas are achieved. In 2020, the SDG report indicates that there is a gap of close to $50 billion a year between now and 2030 to achieve the SDGs. One of its key recommendations out of 3 is to actually increase the efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency of the use of existing resources. In the context of the global pandemic, finding the resources within Ghana will be important, and fighting corruption will be a key plank on that, which that is built. Let me congratulate Shraj and its partners for putting together these important events together. Corruption is not only immoral, but a serious crime. It is often organized and crosses borders. Most importantly, it betrays people and democracies. It steals trillions of dollars from people all over the world, usually from the most in need, and it siphons off resources for sustainable development. Democracies are weakened by cynicism and helplessness because of corruption. Turning the tide against corruption is essential if we are to achieve the sustainable development goals, promote peace, and protect human rights. We must all reinvigorate political commitment in the fight against corruption. And in this regard, we congratulate you, Mr. President, for showing your personal commitment by being here today as we mark these two important international days. We must also strengthen international cooperation to recover stolen assets and prevent those responsible from corruption from finding safe havens for themselves and their loot. The creation of the Global Operational Network on Anti-Corruption Law Enforcement Authorities, launched at the United Nations General Assembly, holds its first ever session against corruption, a step in the right direction. The network will enable law enforcement authorities to navigate legal processes through informal cooperation across borders, helping to build trust and bring those guilty of corruption to justice. We expect the global network to empower all countries with practical solutions and tools to track, investigate, and prosecute corruption, complementing existing frameworks. United Nations system, will continue to provide technical assistance to fight corruption, backed by the UN Common Position on Corruption, agreed in the run-up to the special session, and based on the UN Convention Against Corruption. Human rights are central also to achieving the SDGs and interconnected, as previous speakers have spoken about here. Let me also reiterate that human rights in the Universal Declaration on Human Rights are universal, inalienable, indivisible, interrelated, and connected. This implies that you cannot enjoy one right without the other, and you must have all in order to enjoy any. Ghana is a signatory to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and has a significant sign-up to a number of treaty bodies. It is currently undertaking the Universal Periodic Review process, and we enjoin Ghana and support Ghana to complete this process effectively and inclusively and ensure that it addresses the key issues that it's identified. Let me now proceed to read to you the statements from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and then that of the Secretary General. First, from the United Nations Commissioner for Human Rights. The past 2 years have painfully demonstrated the intolerable cost of soaring inequalities. Inequality is at the heart of human rights. That does not mean that we look the same, think the same, or act the same. Quite the opposite. It means that we embrace our diversity and demand all be treated without any kind of discrimination. That no matter who we are, who we love, or where we live, we have equal opportunities to live in dignity and to pursue our dreams. That from the moment we are born, anywhere on this planet, we have the same rights. To life, health, and education. To speak our minds without fear. To enjoy our days in a healthy environment, all of us. Equality is about empathy and solidarity, about understanding that, as a common humanity, our only way forward is to work together for the common good. But the inequalities inflamed by COVID-19 are pushing us backwards. It is about time we push back and bring them down. On this Human Rights Day, I invite you to join me in lending your name and your efforts to equality so that we can recover better, fairer, and greener from this crisis, so that we can rebuild societies that are more resilient and sustainable, and so that we can stand up for human rights for all. And finally, the statement of the Secretary General issued today, and I quote, Our world is at a crossroads. The COVID-19 pandemic, the climate crisis, and the expansion of digital technology into all areas of our lives have created new threats to human rights. Exclusion and discrimination are rampant. Public space is shrinking. Poverty and hunger is rising for the first time in decades. Millions of children are missing out on their right to education. Inequality is deepening, but we can choose different paths. 73 years ago today, United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The principles set out in the simple declaration remain the key to realizing all human rights, economic, civil, cultural, social, and political, for all people everywhere. Recovery from the pandemic must be an opportunity to expand human rights and freedoms and to rebuild trust. Trust in the justice and impartiality of laws and institutions, confidence that a life of dignity is within reach, faith that people will get a fair hearing and resolve their grievances peacefully. The United Nations stands for the rights of every member of our human family. Today and every day, we'll continue to work for justice, equality, dignity, and human rights for all. Happy Human Rights Day. I thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Chairman, Lordship Justice Kulendi, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the high point of this program, which is a keynote address by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So may you join me to invite His Excellency to table. Your Excellency, after your address, we would plead with you to stay upstage and present the integrity torch. Thank you.
Chairperson for the occasion, Justice of the Supreme Court, representing the Chief Justice, eminent clergy, Attorney General, Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Shraj, the former Commissioner, members of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, the U.S. Ambassador, the German Ambassador, the UN Resident Coordinator, and other members of the diplomatic corps, traditional rulers, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me at the outset to pat myself a little bit on the back here. I must have been doing something right in my other life. When I see today the two of my proteges, Yoni Kulendi and Godfrey Dami, both members of Akufo-Addo, Prempeh and Co., are occupying two important and sensitive positions in our state: Justice of the Supreme Court and Attorney General. And I wish them well, and I have every confidence that they will discharge their offices with credit. I'm happy to be here with you this morning to speak on a matter of importance to all Ghanaians, that is the fight against corruption. And I thank the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice for convening this event, which is also intended to commemorate International Anti-Corruption Day and International Human Rights Day. Corruption has been a perennial problem for several decades, and everyone in this room is well aware of the danger it poses to our nation. In trying to address the menace, governments over the years have introduced a host of policies and measures, including some unconventional and draconian ones. We have promulgated anti-corruption decrees with provisions for lengthy jail terms. We have confiscated the personal assets of public officials, believed to have been corruptly acquired. We have declared zero tolerance against corruption. We've appealed to the good sense of the Ghanaian through moral crusades for integrity and given sermons on the sins of corruption. We've passed anti-corruption laws. We've strengthened anti-corruption institutions and undertaken public sector financial management and institutional reforms. We've also ratified regional and international anti-corruption conventions as expressions of our commitment to the global fight against corruption. And we have even tied people to the stake merely on suspicion of their being corrupt and shot them dead. We've done all these. We have the laws, we have the institutions, and yet the problem persists. But it is worth bearing in mind that it is not only the headline corruption, the type that involves politicians and high-profile figures, that retards our progress and hinders our development. The driver who knowingly puts a faulty vehicle on the road with the intention of paying bribes to the traffic policeman. The policeman who takes a bribe to allow an unlicensed driver on the road. The planning official who, with the receipt of a bribe, allows a house to be constructed on the waterway. The GRA official that accepts a bribe and allows goods in without the payment of duties. The officials that allow, on receipt of bribes, drugs to be imported into and exported out of our country. And all the everyday petty bribe taking that we all put up with. All such actions constitute corruption and retard our progress even if they do not attract headlines. It is true that corruption is not an exclusively Ghanaian phenomenon, but one which permeates all nations of the world. It results in reputational damage to businesses and establishments and undermines the public trust in governments. The manifestations of corruption are increasingly getting complex, as it often occurs with the aid of professional enablers such as accountants, lawyers, bankers, real estate agents, shell companies, and opaque financial systems that provide opportunities for the laundering and concealment of illicit wealth. If not controlled, corruption can stultify the economic aspirations of any nation. Globally, the World Economic Forum has estimated the cost of corruption around the world at some 2.6 trillion United States dollars. I accepted the invitation to speak here in order to take advantage of this occasion to place my government's record on corruption for public scrutiny. It will show that my government has undertaken arguably the boldest initiative since our nation attained independence nearly 65 years ago to reform and strengthen the capacity of our institutions to tackle corruption in the public sector. Charity, they say, begins at home. And that is why so far every single alleged act of corruption leveled against any of my appointees has been investigated by independent bodies such as SRAJ, the CID, and in some cases by Parliament itself. It is not my job to clear or convict any person accused of wrongdoing or of engaging in acts of corruption. That is the job of the courts. My job is to act on allegations of corruption by referring the issue or issues to the proper investigative agencies for the relevant inquiry and necessary action, including, if required, the suspension of the affected official pending the conclusion of investigations. That is exactly what has been done since I assumed the mantle of national leadership on 7th January 2017. Thus, it was that in 2019, I suspended the then acting head of the Public Procurement Agency from office after conflict of interest and corruption allegations had been leveled against him. Following recommendations from Shraj, based on their investigation, I removed him from office in October 2020, and the Office of Special Prosecutor is seized with the matter of prosecution. If an appointee is cleared of any wrongdoing, the evidence adduced and recommendation made by these agencies after the investigations are concluded are what clear the accused persons, not myself. None of these agencies has ever indicated any pressure from the executive over their investigations. There are some who refuse to accept my method of proceeding and have characterized me as a clearing agent. Because for them, the mere allegation without more is enough to merit condemnation of the public official, even though they did not apply this principle when they were in office. For my part, I will not set aside due process in the fight against corruption, no matter how much opprobrium this incurs for me. Ladies and gentlemen, with a clear understanding that corruption thrives in an atmosphere conducive to its concealment, and that access to information is a vital tool in the fight against corruption, my government in its first term ensured the passage of the Right of Information Act 2019, Act 989, in order to give true meaning and effect to Article 21, Clause 1, Subclause F of the Constitution. The Act, which successive governments had failed to pass, sees to the implementation of the constitutional right to information held by a public institution to foster a culture of transparency and accountability in public affairs, subject to exemptions necessary and consistent with the protection of the public interest in a democratic society. The Act is being implemented fully now, with the governing board chaired by an experienced retired High Court judge. The Ministry of Information is in the process of training information officers in various ministries, departments, and agencies of government to support the full implementation of the law. In 2018, again during my first term, Parliament passed the Witness Protection Act 2018, Act 975, to which I gave my assent on the 24th of August this same year. The Act established a Witness Protection Agency, established a Witness Protection Scheme as a vehicle for offering protection to persons who are required to cooperate with law enforcement agencies as witnesses in the investigation and prosecution of cases, particularly corruption cases affecting public officers. Last year, the Criminal Offences Amendment Act 2020, Act 1034, was passed to amend Section 239 of the Criminal Offences Act to categorize the offense of corruption, previously a misdemeanor, as a felony, and to guarantee stiffer punishment of terms of imprisonment of not less than 12 years and not more than 25 years in prison. Other laws passed by my administration and which have enhanced significantly the capacity of the state in the fight against corruption are the Revenue Administration Amendment Act 2020, Act 1029, the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, State Interest and Governance Authority Act 2019, Act 990, Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020, Act 1044, the Corporate Restructuring and Insolvency Act 2020, Act 1015, and the Companies Act 2019, Act 992, the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020, Act 1019, and the Real Estate Agency Act 2020, Act 1047. Administratively, a series of other far-reaching measures have been undertaken by my government to help in the fight against corruption. A memorandum of understanding on information exchange and collaboration in combating corruption and crime in general has been signed by SHRAJ, EYOCO, Parliament, Office of the Attorney General, Ghana Audit Service, the Ghana Police Service, the Financial Intelligence Center, the Narcotics Control Commission, the Internal Audit Agency, the National Investigation Bureau, NIB, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor to this end. Underlying the digitization agenda of my government, which comprises a robust national identification system, digital property address system, the paperless port system, e-justice system, pensions and insurance data, a digitized land registry, and mobile money interoperability system, is the overarching objective to improve transparency, accountability, and efficiency in the public sector. A digitized environment, ultimately, helps to eliminate and prevent corruption in various institutions and agencies. The Passport Office, Ports and Harbors, Register General's Department, the National Health Insurance Service, Driver Vehicle and Licensing Authority, which hitherto were fertile grounds for corrupt activity, are being transformed beyond recognition. The introduction of the Ghana.gov platform has significantly reduced the risk of public sector corruption through embezzlement, making it possible for services to be accessed and payments made online by card or mobile money, with a significant reduction in the conduit of middlemen or guru boys. It is also an undeniable fact that budgetary allocations for institutions actively engaged in public sector accountability, that is the Office of the Auditor General, the Judiciary, Parliament, and the Ghana Police Service, have witnessed unprecedented increases since I assumed office in 2017. At the end of 2021, the budgetary allocation to Parliament had witnessed a 194% increase compared to what was inherited in 2016. The police had seen its budget increase by 162% at the end of 2021 in comparison to 2016. The Audit Service had recorded an 83% rise in its budgetary allocation at the end of 2021 as compared to 2016. The budget of the Judiciary had risen by 51% at the end of 2021 compared to 2016. The budget of the Office of the Attorney General had increased by 50% at the end of 2021 compared to 2016, while the budget of SHRAJ had increased by 21% at the end of 2021 compared to 2016. These figures reflect my resolve to ensure that institutions of state of relevance in the anti-corruption agenda are properly equipped to discharge satisfactorily the mandate of their offices. In ensuring value for money, through the review of single source and restricted tender applications, the Public Procurement Authority, between January 2019 and August 2021, recorded savings to the tune of 2.3 billion cedis. In 2017, my first year in office, The savings made over the years as a result of such reviews amounted to some 800 million cedis. Contrast this to the situation in 2016, where a grand total of zero savings was made. In the area of investigations and prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offenses, a distinct innovation was undertaken by administration in 2017 with the decision to set up the Office of Special Prosecutor through the passage of the Office of Special Prosecutor Act 2017 Act 959. The establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor represents the most courageous measure by any government since independence to prosecute corruption in the executive arm of government. The monopoly of prosecutorial authority by an attorney general, hired or fired by a president, had been identified by many as a key factor standing in the way of law enforcement and prosecution as a credible tool in the fight against corruption before 2017. In the course of the existence of the office, government has made substantial budgetary allocations to cater for compensation of staff expected to be recruited, for capital expenditure, and for goods and services. These allocations have unfortunately not so far been utilized by the office. It is refreshing to note, however, that the Office of Special Prosecutor under the second occupant of the office has finally moved into a 10-story building located at the Ridge in Accra that it identified for use 3 years ago, and which my government fully refurbished and made available to it. I am of the firm belief that with the right attitude, mindset, and appreciation of public service which he has, the new Special Prosecutor, Mr. Kisi Ajabing, will live up to the duties imposed on him by Act 959. Ladies and gentlemen, inasmuch as public officials are required to declare their assets upon taking office as a tool of fighting corruption, I'm, however, of the candid opinion that existing legislation on corruption relating to the conduct of public officers in Ghana appears to be inadequate to deal extensively with public office accountability. The need to lay down a set of far-reaching and a more fit-for-purpose set of regulations for the conduct of public officers, which will give effect to the provisions of Chapter 24 of the Constitution of the Republic on conduct of public officers, is, in my view now, self-evident. The Attorney General, on behalf of government, is currently leading the effort to enact a law on the conduct of public officers. Over the past 4 months, he has undertaken various stakeholder consultations with a number of public sector organizations, civil society, and other interest groups to this end. When passed into law, the Conduct of Public Officers Act will follow the example of legislations in other jurisdictions like the United States Ethics of Government Act of 1978, Public Officers Ethics Act of Kenya, and the UK Constitutional and Governance Act of 2010 in addressing issues regarding financial portfolios held by public officers before assuming public office, links to family business, improper enrichment, care of public property, professional practices, property investments, shareholdings, and other assets, self-dealing, partiality in the performance of duties, use of public or confidential information to further private interest, amongst others. The bill will provide a gamut of stringent administrative measures and sections of the law, ranging from a bar against holding public office for limited and indefinite periods to penal measures. The bill also seeks to strengthen the role of SHRAJ in the investigation of allegations of contravention of or non-compliance with the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, including conflict of interest, non-declaration of assets, and illicit enrichment. Let me use this platform also to update you about some of the important contributions of the Office of Attorney General in the detection and prosecution of high-profile corruption cases, as well as in the protection of the public purse. The state's tight purse is very much affected by the award of judgment debts in various unconscionable transactions. The recent example of a financial house claiming payment of interest of some 1.3 billion cedis after 11 years from a transaction involving a meager 268,000 cedis in 2008, even after the state had already paid some $75 million. 75 million cedis, excuse me, comes to mind. Through the effort of the Attorney General, the Supreme Court declared further payment as unlawful, saving the state some $230 million. On 31st July 2021, the Attorney General succeeded in setting aside a judgment in excess of 15.3 million United States dollars imposed by the High Court Kumasi in an action arising out of the activities of the erstwhile Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining about 2 years ago. I'm aware of a bill by the Attorney General seeking to amend the Contracts Act, 1960-25, which will explicitly forbid a public officer from entering into a contract which states that the rate of interest to be that of compound interest. The bill is also going through the process of stakeholder engagements before it is brought to Cabinet and subsequently enacted by Parliament. With regards to prosecution, the Office of the Attorney General and the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EUCO, in addition to the countless cases being prosecuted around the country, have successfully prosecuted a number of high-profile cases, including a case of stealing in the Republic versus Eugene Bafuboni and others, many other high-profile prosecutions involving corruption, economic crime, fraud, procurement breaches, and money laundering, like the Republic versus Alhaji Collins Dowda and 4 others in the Sajalmi scandal, Republic versus Ernest Thompson and others, Republic versus Dr. Kwabena Dufo and others, Republic versus Stephen Opuni and others, are ongoing. It is worthy to note that these cases, as far as have as their sole object the principle of holding public officers to account, and involve sums in excess of 850 million United States dollars and 2 billion cedis. The punishment of corruption requires the establishment of a fair, honest, and efficient judicial system. A robust legal system underpinned by the rule of law goes hand in hand with economic prosperity as it bolsters the confidence of the people and deters the perpetration of wrongdoing. Many a time, the prosecution of high-profile corruption is thwarted by unjustified delays with frivolous interlocutory appeals filed to frustrate the course of justice and unwarranted adjournments. The efficiency of a nation's justice system is tested by the manner in which cases seeking to hold high-profile members of society to account are conducted. It is unreasonable and unfair for so-called high-profile criminal cases involving the summary offenses of fraud, willfully causing financial loss to the state, and money laundering to drag on for years, whilst criminal cases filed against perceived ordinary members of society are concluded within 6 months to 1 year. These developments deepen the perception of inequity in our society. The judiciary has a great role to play in the eradication of corruption. The best way to do so is by the speedy, efficient, and just adjudication of cases, especially so-called high-profile prosecutions, in order to affirm the principle of equality before the law. There is a conclusion to which I would draw the attention of those whose political purposes are served by the attempted stigmatization of my government as corrupt. More monies have been spent by my government on education, health, infrastructure, particularly roads, agriculture, industry, the security services, and the anti-corruption institutions than by any other government in the Fourth Republic, if not in the entire history of Ghana. Furthermore, after all these expenditures, my government was still able to find some 25 billion cedis to pay for the refund of depositors' monies arising from the financial sector crisis. These expenditures indicate clearly what taxpayers' monies and the revenues of government have been used for by the Akufo-Addo government. It is difficult to sustain any serious argument about the wanton dissipation of public funds in my time as president. Ladies and gentlemen, what I have done is to show you that my government has fought corruption not in words, but in concrete deeds. We have shunned mere exhortations and showy denunciations of unproved corruption. It has been a holistic approach. We've protected the public purse, we've made institutional reforms, we have enacted additional requisite laws, and we have resourced more adequately the accountability organs of state. Our fight against corruption has been grounded on legislative, financial, and institutional action, and not on lip service. Finally, Mr. Chairperson, let me restate the generally accepted views on the effect of corruption. It reduces revenue to the state. It holds back economic growth. It leads to a flight of capital. It holds and it inflates the cost of government. It stifles initiative and creativity and dampens motivation. It undermines merit and rewards appointments and success, and encourages mediocrity, laziness, and incompetence. The responsibility of the executive is to enforce the law, no matter who's affected. That is a necessary foundation for the successful fight against corruption. The law must truly be no respecter of persons. I'm grateful for this opportunity to contribute my thoughts to this important conversation, and have the honor now to launch the National Cultural Review and Schools Integrity Programs. May God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong. I thank you for your attention, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
There's a presentation of the integrity torch, which Deputy Commissioner Raj will present the torch to His Excellency the President. The President will present it to the Executive Director of National Commission on Culture, who then passes it to the Director General. Thank you. Yes, sir. Your Excellency. Not yet.
They do the
Right. We will take the photo session after the national anthem. Your Excellency would we'll have the photo session here. First, the President with the Attorney General, the resident representative, Commissioner Int'l,